This week's film is Martin Scorsese's controversial urban drama, Taxi Driver, released in America's bicentennial year, 1976, and starring Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, and Harvey Keitel. Drawing on many of the expressionistic visual flourishes and thematic concerns of 1940s film noir, including a gritty urban setting presented in a highly realistic manner, a focus on the grimy underbelly of society, criminality and violence, corruption and insanity. The film presents an unflattering portrait not only of the main character, the psychotic cab driver Travis Bickle, but also of American society in general. The film presents a portrait of a society in decline, a message and vision that stood in stark contrast to the triumphalist celebrations of American culture and society during the bicentennial year. Visually, the film is brilliantly conceived. Many of the most memorable scenes are shot through the windshield of Travis's cab as Travis observes the world and expresses his disgust through a pervasive first-person voiceover narration. We see and hear the world through Travis's point of view, which makes the experience of watching the film a potentially unsettling and disturbing one. All of the ways that film narratives can encourage audience identification with a character are used here. And as Travis slips further and further into his own peculiar brand of psychosis, the audience is pulled along with him. Perhaps one of the most remarkable aspects of this film is Robert De Niro's much celebrated performance. A method actor, De Niro seems to completely inhabit his role as Travis, and many of the film's most famous scenes were improvised by De Niro, including the iconic scene as Travis poses, shirtless and with a freshly cut mohawk, asking the mirror in his apartment, "Are you talking to me?" Here I'd like to read a short passage from a book called American Cinema, American Culture, written by film scholar John Belton. It presents a very good, very concise statement of the structural, that is, deliberate, built-in incoherence in the film. Belton writes, "A certain level of incoherence lies at the heart of Taxi Driver, embodied in the central character, Travis Bickle. Much as the hero's own goals and desires remain unclear and confused, so does the audience's understanding of and attitude towards Travis. What does Travis want? The untouchable blonde angel, Betsy, whom he irrationally takes to a porno movie on their first big date? The child prostitute, Iris, whom he attempts to reform? If he hates the filth of the city and speaks of washing the scum off the streets, why is the target of his assassination attempt the populist politician who has promised to clean up the city? Why does Travis suddenly switch his intended target, killing Iris's pimp instead of the politician? The incoherence of the character carries over to the audience. Spectators remain uncertain as to whether Travis's rescue of Iris at the end of the film, which is accomplished by a brutal murder of her pimp and two of his associates, is to be understood as heroic, as the verbal accounts of it in the press suggested, or is it to be considered disturbingly psychotic and psychopathic, as Scorsese's filming of the sequence implies? Travis emerges as the enigmatic product of the various incoherencies in the world around him. The film captures the plight of the alienated individual in contemporary consumer society. Surrounded by the conflicting messages of politicians, pimps, and the media, and engulfed in filth, crime, and corruption, Travis attempts to play the part of the old-fashioned Western hero, whose decisive actions would set things right once and for all. But traditional heroism is no longer possible in this world. He can only play the part of a somewhat dubious anti-hero who lashes out at the most immediate and obvious target he can find. Films like Taxi Driver expose the contradictions that informed 1970s America, describing the conditions that produce phenomena such as Vietnam. Travis is a Vietnam veteran, after all. And Watergate, the film's politician would do or say anything to get elected. But it refuses to understand or make sense of those conditions. The film struck a nerve in Middle America. One of its repeat viewers was John Hinckley, the ultimate incoherent spectator, who fell in love with Jodie Foster and shot the politician, President Ronald Reagan, rather than the pimp, in an attempt to rewrite the film and give it a better, that is, more coherent ending. Or perhaps, like Travis, all he wanted was to get the attention of a girl, Jodie Foster for Hinckley, Betsy for Travis. Taxi Driver, released in 1976, directed by Martin Scorsese. I hope you enjoy the film.